Welcome back. 2020 promises to be an exciting year. We've, of course, got a presidential election, so that's going to be very interesting. The economy, of course, we'll still be interested in that, and continuing issues with trade with China. So with me to talk a little bit more about all these things from a millennial perspective, Richard Lorenzen, the CEO of Fifth Avenue Brands.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you back.
Great to be back.
And always good to hear the millennial perspective on kind of what's going on. So,
Sure.
Well, let's start with here we are, beginning of the year.
Yep.
Let's start with the election, because I think
Yep.
that's going to be a brawl, right?
Yep.
This year. I mean, what
Yep.
do you think millennials will? I mean, will they be attracted to that fight? What are they looking for in a candidate?
I think, well, I think it's clear that they're not attracted to it. Is one of the things that we're seeing is that millennials are really turned off by all the division that we're seeing in the country between different parties, different ideologies, and we're seeing that play out in a lot of the different choices that they're making in terms of how they invest. They're being a little bit more conservative heading into the new year. Career paths they choose, a lot of them are fearful about what this could mean for corporate stability, for job stability around the country. So there's a lot of uncertainty around it, but I think it's clear that millennials are definitely turned off by all this division that they're seeing.
Well, I think we all are. But yet nobody's
so.
budging, right? I mean,
Yep.
even, my mom, and she's, in her 80s, is like,
Yep.
I'm so sick of all this.
Yep.
But yet there still seems to be this fighting going on. I guess, I don't know, nobody's compromising.
And then on top of that, you have social media and the internet that contributes to pouring fuel all over that fire.
Right.
So not only is the country more divided than it's been in such a long period of time, but you have this forum on the internet, on Twitter, where people are able to basically, launch flamethrowers at each other.
Yeah. I really try to
very
stay
negative
off Twitter,
atmosphere.
honestly.
Yep.
I do, because it's just anger-inducing, so I just try to.
And as each party moves further to the right and to the left, we're only going to see it getting worse. And I think one of the trends you'll see going into this election is millennials gravitating towards a candidate who can start to bridge that gap and bring people back together. And I think we could be moving back towards a more moderate center in both parties.
Interesting.
As all this division and negativity and as it plays out.
Do you think there is a candidate emerging that will be a millennial favorite?
I think it's too early to say. There are definitely leaders right now. We've seen that Elizabeth Warren is very popular for some of the policies that she has around education and healthcare. We see that Pete Buttigieg is very popular because he's this young guy who brings this new energy and fresh perspective to the debate. And then you have Joe Biden, who is a very popular vice president under a very popular President Obama. So it's clear that they're leading at this point, but I don't think the jury's out as far as who millennials really want to get behind. At least
Would
the
any
data's
of them
not showing
support
that.
Donald Trump, or is that just out of the question? Because you mentioned all.
Well, you have millennials on both sides of the aisle, right?
Okay.
You have millennials on both sides of the aisle for sure. But I think it's very clear that in the Republican Party, the Trump base is very strong at this point. The people who support him, and I don't see them deviating from that. The people who don't support him, moderates, people on the left,
they're not coming
are not coming around. So I think his base is very strong, but it's also it's cemented in, and it's not changing one way or the other.
Now, so about the economy. So you mentioned millennials are conservative. So with their money. So do you think that relates to just kind of coming of age during the financial crisis and seeing how painful that was?
I think so. They grew up during the 07, 08 crash, Bear Stearns going down, the housing market tanking.
Oh, I covered it. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Right, and coming of age and seeing, your parents also go through that, it definitely affects the beliefs that you have around money, and it affects the career choices that you make. At the same time, millennials are also growing up in one of the better economic periods over the past 10 years.
I think they will be better off in the long run by being not as debt loaded. Of course, they've got the student debt, but Generation X and so forth, there's credit card debt, and, a couple of mortgages and all these things. So I think that more
different debt,
approach.
but still exactly. Student debt is, I think, the #1 problem that young people are facing right now. So it's not the same as the car debt, the credit card debt that previous generations were dealing with. But it's clear that whether you're on the right or on the left, we need to figure out some kind of a way that we can deal with the astronomical student debt that we're seeing compared to GDP before it really comes to a head and melts down.
Oh, for sure.
Yep.
Now, have you heard any proposals among any of the candidates about student debt, or even pieces of proposals that you could put together that you think would be good to address the student debt issue?
I think it's hard to crunch the numbers on it. There are a lot of ideas, everything ranging from let's make all state college free to let's provide more grants and incentives and tax deductions and things like that on the right side. But I don't think that it's really clear yet how any of those, because every campaign is positioning these based on how they think it's going to poll, right?
Right.
And I don't think that we've really seen the numbers for how any of these proposals on either side are actually going to work, and they're not going to contribute to the deficit and the debt over a longer period of time. So again, I think the jury's kind of out on that as well.
It's a really interesting time to be alive, as stressful as it can be sometimes.
Yep.
So thank you so much, Richard,
Thank you.
for coming in. And thank you as well for joining us. We'll be right back.